Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is a new year. We got a new deck. This is gonna be another exchange video. Sorry, it took a little bit of time to get here. Had a bunch of stuff going on, moving. I got sick, so I didn't feel like recording, and then I tested quite a few different builds of this deck. The flame swordsman stuff came out. I wanted to try that. Um, it was alright. Flame Swordsman didn't really seem to do that much, to be honest. Then obviously I was playing the Mechanical Snake Eyes version. I might probably still do a video on that since that list is very similar to how this one is. It's just this build is the one we're focusing on right now. It has these Super Samurai cards. It's very similar to the Sword Soul video that we did. So I pretty much decent amount of fun with this one here, so figured why not go ahead and cover this list. Anyway, as I was saying though, this is an exchange video, so we are going to be breaking down the deck list into categories. There are four categories. We have defensive cards, we have extenders, starters, and enders. The defensive cards being cards that are pretty much non-engine for the most part, or there's just cards that protect your engine, so they help you either resolve effects, or they just prevent your opponent from removing cards from your field via either like destruction or banishing or things like that. And then we have extenders. Extenders are cards that just help you get resources either from your deck into your hand and your graveyard to your field, or they help you like manage resources that you already use, or you're banished or graveyard. Help those get back added to your hand or summoned to your field, things like that. They don't facilitate combos by themselves really. As for starters, our starters are cards that do help you do your combos, and generally they don't require any setup, so you should just be able to play them from your hand and do a combo that way, or just with a certain combination of cards in your hand. But either way, they shouldn't require a whole lot of setup, at least in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. And then we have our enders. These are cards that just help our end boards be stronger. They don't really help you combo very much. You just want to make sure that they resolve so you can get something on your board that's going to help you play against your opponent. But that about wraps that up, so I am going to get into the card by card now. Starting us off, we have a Fake Veiler. This is a hand trap. It's non-engine. All of those are going to be defensive cards. We do play the one of it. It's a solid hand trap, but it's not usable every turn. Unlike Imperm, Imperm just isn't synergistic with the Super Samurai cards. You don't want to be going second, play Imperm on your first turn, and then now your Super Samurai cards are dead. So we're running a Veiler instead. I just think Veiler's a little bit weaker. Then next up we have Drill the Lockbird. This is another defensive card. It is some more hand traps. Playing three of it because it is a very strong high impact hand trap. It can stop momentum in a lot of decks. It's also going to pretty much stop Max C as well. I do not like drawing it in Max C or drawing it off of Max C, but you know, it is what it is. We can play decently well under Joel. You won't be able to get like full combo or anything. It's very restricting, but you can pretty much do well under Maxi when you have Droll active. Or you can pretty much play well under Droll, I mean. You can at least get to an Emperor Charles at the very least, and an Angelica's Ring. So decent enough for an Emperor, since you'll pretty much have two pops on top of that with the Roland and Charles effect, and then you have Princess as well. So decent amount of setup. But yeah, I definitely recommend running this as it's a really good hand trap, especially if your deck can play under it. Then next up we have a Super Heavy Samurai Soul Peacemaker. This is going to be a Garnet that helps our Super Heavy Samurai engine kind of work. You don't really want to draw this at all. It doesn't do anything. You just so happen to draw another Super Heavy Samurai card with it as you summon to your field. Otherwise, this is just an extender that doesn't do much. Next up we have a Squeak Knight. This is another Garnet. It helps our Sublimation Knight combo work. That's pretty much it. It's just a level 1 warrior, a fire warrior. So not too much to say with this card. It's another extended. All of our Garnets are going to be extenders, pretty much. Infernoble Knight Renaud. This is another extender. It has two effects. The first of being if you control a Fire Warrior monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if special summoned that way, it has to be treated as a tuner. Then it has the second effect. If you special summon this card, you can target a Fire Warrior monster or an equip spell that's either banished or in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. So this card is going to help you recycle your resources. You're definitely going to need at least one of these. This is going to help out making sure you can get two trials out consistently. Next up, we have Fireflint Lady. This is another extender. What she does is if you control a warrior, doesn't matter what attribute it is, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then she has another effect if you can send her from the field to the graveyard to special summon a level 4 or lower warrior monster from your hand, and then your opponent cannot target with card effects for that turn. So this is going to be helpful for getting like extra bodies out of your hand, essentially. Or really just helping you get bodies for Isold is the job of Fireflint Lady. But any card like this, like OGA or something that's stuck in your hand that you just want to get out, this card's going to be useful for that as well. Next up, we have Richard, another extender. You can banish this card from your hand or graveyard, special summon a level 4 or lower Fire Warrior monster from your hand as a tuner, and then it being a level 1 Fire Warrior tuner itself is going to help you get into your synchro plays. It's really important that we have at least one of these Richards in our deck. Then it has the second effect, which is more important, the one we use more often in this build, is going to be if this card is normal or special summon, target a level 4 or lower Fire Warrior monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Then you will be warrior locked for the rest of the turn, which isn't really much of a problem since most of our combos and most of the cards in this deck have warrior monsters. Generally, anything you want to summon that's not a warrior, you will play before you even get to Richard. But either way, really strong extender is going to help us get into our synchro plays the most. So definitely important you run this guy as well. Next up, we have Maxi. It's another hand trap. Going to slide right into the defensive category. Now, getting into our starters, Super Heavy Samurai Motorbike. If you if you have no spell or traps in your graveyard, you can discard this card and add a Super Heavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand. So what this does is that it searches Wakushi, which is our actual starter. This is just a searcher, but it searches a starter, so it's good enough, right? Then, if you do have Wakushi, you can pretty much search any of your other Super Heavy Samurai cards that you may need for your combo, or you can just use this as discard fodder for your combo as well. So definitely going to want to run 3 of this since having starters is super important. Next up, we have Speedroid Terratop. This is another starter. What this card does, if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then, if this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Speedroid monster from your deck to your hand. So you would add up our next card, which is Talking Tomborg. This is a Garnet that helps this combo work. Essentially, what you're going to do is get 2 level 3s on the board, and that's going to help you make MX Saber. So, what Talking Tomborg does is if you control a wind monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. These are also inherent summons, so your opponent can't really react to these, so it's super powerful, super good. And then this saves your normal summon, so you can still have optional plays to do as well. So, that's why I really like this engine. Next up, we have Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This is a hand trap, going to be a defensive card. Next up, we have Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. This is another hand trap. I'm just enjoying running it this season since there's a lot of Tenpai going around, and Tenpai is one of those decks that's really good at OTKing, and this is a card that's really good at preventing being OTK'd. Since Tenpai doesn't have a whole lot of disruptions for follow-up, it's pretty easy to win against them if they don't OTK you, but 9 times out of 10 they will. I've had pretty good experiences so far with this card in the matchup, but they definitely still can. They just have to play very correctly. They have to do as few summons as possible, and they pretty much have to attack with the I forgot the name of the card, the Tri-Headed Dragon. It can get up to 6k attack, and it can attack 3 times essentially. So that's the one way they can OTK you, but if they try to make a bunch of plays before doing that without realizing, then you'll have a pretty good chance of surviving. But Next up, we have Sublimation Knight. This is another starter. If this card is normal or special summon, you can equip one Fire Warrior monster from your hand or deck to this card as an equip spell. That'll give it 500 attack. So what we like to do with this is we like to equip the Squeak Knight, the level 1 Fire Warrior monster that we went over in the beginning, and then Squeak Knight has the effect of it can be special summon itself if it is equipped to a monster. And then that's really the only important effect a part of Squeak Knight. You don't really want to use this other effect, which can turn it into a tuner, but you'll be locked into one summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, so pretty much never going to want to do that. But yeah, that's really just the important part of those. It's just this card plays around Ash, since you'll be setting the Squeak Knight from the deck and not adding it to your hand, which is why I prefer this. Well, it's one of the reasons I prefer this combo as compared to the other normal summons that you could use for starters. Let's see if I can think of one off the top of my head. The Neospatian, which is another starter that you can use if it's normal summoned. You can add the other Neospatian. Actually, do you add or special summon? I'm pretty sure you special summon the other Neospatian from your deck. That'll get you your 2 warriors for Isold. And then the other Neospatian has an on-summon effect of you can look at your opponent's hand and then destroy a card that has a lower attack than one of the monsters that you control. But so it's really good for playing against hand traps, but this is also pretty good for playing around Ash as well. At least Ash. It's good for playing around Ash. But next up, we have Hari. This is an extender. What this card does is if it becomes equipped with an equipped card, you can add one mechanical equip spell from your deck to your hand. So this is pretty much going to search a form of removal in either the form of Aberrask or what's the name of this card? It's so difficult. I think it's called Maya Washidori. Aberrask can bounce a monster, and then Maya Washidori during the battle phase. If one of your if one of your Mechanicos battles, you can bounce a card back to the hand. So really good forms of removal in both of those cards. But then it has another effect of if this card is equipped with an equipped card, your opponent will take any battle damage from battles you would have involving this card. And then also this card cannot be destroyed by battle. And then it always has the effect of you take no battle damages involving this card. So really good monster to just have on the board at all times. Then next up we have Q-Lee, Jewel of the Mechanical. This card reads that if it is equipped with an equipped card, it pretty much says the same as Hari. You never take battle damage from this card. This card cannot be destroyed by battle if it's equipped with an equipped card, and your opponent will take any battle damage you would have taken. Then it has another effect. If it's equipped with an equipped card, your opponent cannot target any mechanical cards you control, so they won't be able to target your monsters or your back row, which is super important because your opponent will pretty much have to try to remove your equipped spells from these before they can have a chance of destroying them. And then it can search a mechanical trap, which we aren't running in this build. I do run it in the mechanical Snake Eyes build of the Infernoble deck, but really didn't see the need of it in this version. The mechanicals are just here to kind of facilitate certain plays. Them being level 3s helps you get into MX Saber. This being a wind lets you summon the Talk of Tomborg if you draw both of these, and that's generally it. The mechanicals are just also really good for playing into certain towers. They're usually pretty big, and since you can't out them in any other way, you might as well just make your opponent eat the damage for them. So really fun cards. Then next up we have, both of these cards are extenders, if I did not mention that. But moving on, we have Super Heavy Samurai Scales. This is another extender. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower Super Heavy Samurai monster in your graveyard and then special summon it in the defense position. So practically another Garnet that just helps the Super Heavy Samurai engine work, but it's a little less bad to draw as compared as the other ones. Next up we have Soul Piercer. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one Super Heavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand, except itself, which it is limited right now, so you wouldn't be able to do it anyway. But Then it has another effect. If you control a Super Heavy Samurai monster, you can equip this card from your hand or field to that monster, and then you can just link that monster off, and then it'll leave the field that way, and you get the search. So really, really powerful card. It not being a hard once per turn, really once per turn at all. This card's just not once per turn. So we abuse this. We use the hell out of this for our Super Heavy Samurai combo, honestly. Super, super, super fun. Not gonna lie, this card's kind of dumb. This card is also going to be another starter, though. Now we have Infernoble Knight Ogier. This card has really two effects that are important. Really, really one, honestly. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Noble Arms card or Fire Warrior monster from your deck to the graveyard. So this is gonna foolish a monster from deck, really. You're never really gonna want to send your Noble Arm cards off of this. Then if it's in the graveyard or you control a warrior monster, you can target it and equip it with this card. Then the equipped monster gains the effect of not being able to be destroyed by card effects. So yeah, this card is really helpful for making our Angelica combo work, essentially. So we'll get to what Angelica does later, though. Next up, we have Heroic Challenger Morningstar. This card is another extender. Extender, by the way. But yeah, this card is another extender that makes our MX Saber combo work. What this card does is, if it is normal or special summon, you can add a heroic spell or trap from your deck to your hand, and that searches it. It's an extender. So this card is an extender that searches an extender. Super, super simple. Then it has the additional effect of if you control 2 or more warrior monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's super easy to get out of your hand as well. Now, it has an additional effect, but you have to have 500 life points or less, which is super unlikely. Super unlikely. So we're gonna ignore that. Next up, we have Infernoble Knight Turpin. While this card is, well, let's get into the important effect. If you control a monster equipped with an equipped card, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard. But if it is special summoned from the graveyard, banish it when it leaves the field, and then all of the Infernoble Knight level 4s pretty much have this effect. If it's in the graveyard and you control a warrior, you can target it and equip it with this card. Then this card's equip effect is the equipped monster can be treated as a tuner for a synchro summon. So not really important in this build, at least I've never used it, but it definitely comes up in the Snake Eyes build. So I'll probably go over it whenever we actually do videos covering that list. But yeah, you can pretty much ignore that effect right now. Also, if I'm just skipping over effects, it's just because they're not really important to the deck or just to this build. I don't really want to waste you guys' time. You can pause and read the cards if you want to, but I'm really just going to go over what's important to this build. So next up, we have Gearfried. This is an Ender. What this card does is if it's in your hand, you can banish an equip spell either from your field or your graveyard to special summon it. Then it has two other effects. The first off being a non-targeting removal. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks, you can equip one face-up monster on the field to this card as an equip spell that gives it 500 attack. So really, really strong form of removal. And then it has another effect. When a monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can send this card, not this card, you can send one face-up equip spell to the graveyard and negate to the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So it has a monster gate, it has extra removal, it has non-targeted removal during the battle phase, and it can be special summoned from the hand. It all has 3k attack. It's a really big monster. It's super strong card. And next up we have Nibiru the Primal Being. This is another hand trap, so it's going to be a defensive card. Now we have Wakushi, the main man of the Super Heavy Samurai engine. This is going to be a starter. It has let's see, really two really important effects that you're going to use. The first off being, if this card is in your Pendulum Zone, you can place another Super Heavy Samurai Pendulum monster in the other Pendulum Zone and special summon this card. So it's going to save you your normal summon and get you a level 4 tuner for free. Then if this card is sent to the extra deck face up for a synchro summon, well, as synchro material, you can place this card face up in your pendulum zone. So this is going to help you get your pendulum scales up for free, basically, since you're doing a whole lot of comboing and getting to that point, essentially. Um, but yeah, the card that you are going to set in your other pendulum zone is the Garnet. I have been drawing the most, Big Benkei. This card says, well, the really important effect on this card is while it's in the Pendulum Zone and you control a Super Heavy Samurai monster, you can add one Super Heavy Samurai Soul monster from your deck to your hand. So this will only search out either Peacemaker or Soul Piercer. And that is pretty much it. Very annoying to draw because you have to pretty much set this card in your Pendulum Zone, and if you don't have it in your deck, you cannot do that with Wakushi, so you'll pretty much be forced to use your normal summon on your Wakushi or whatever Pendulum, not Pendulum, but whatever Super Samurai monster you have in your hand if you want to do that combo. And anyway, I do believe that pretty much wraps up our Superior Samurai cards, as well as just all of our monsters in the main deck, so we're going to move on. Next up, we have Heroic Call. This is the card that you search off of the Morning Star. This card says that you can special summon a warrior monster from your hand or graveyard, but if it's not a heroic monster, negate its effects and also it cannot attack. So pretty much this is just an extender that gets you another body that you would hopefully use for something else, either like a synchro summon or a link summon or something. But either way, it's a really decent extender for getting bodies to your field. Next up we have Durandal. This is an extender slash semi-starter, I want to say. If you're going second, you can equip this to one of your opponent's monsters and then use its effect. But other than that, going first, this is just an extender. But this card has two effects. The first of being, if this card is equipped to a monster, you can add a level 5 or lower Fire Warrior monster from your deck to your hand, then destroy this card. So this is a really good searcher for your Fire Warrior monsters. It's essentially Rhoda for your Fire Warrior monsters. And then it has another effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a level 5 or lower Fire Warrior monster from your graveyard. But you can only use one of these effects. So you can either only use the search or you can only use the reborn effect. So generally speaking, we like to run one of this card, but it's always good to have the extra just in case. It is a pretty good extender, and it's pretty much live in most hands that you can get a body into the field. Next up, we have Aberrask. This is a extender slash defensive card. It has it has two effects. The first of being the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects, so it's going to be a form of protection. That's how it's a bit of defensive, but it also has another defensive effect in the form of removal. And what this card does is basically during the main phase, you can special summon one mechanical monster either from your hand or deck with a different name than the equipped monster, and if you do equip it with this card, then return the monster that was previously equipped with this card back to the hand. So you get to special summon a mechanical monster, equip it with this card, so then it can activate its effect when it's equipped, and you get to bounce a monster back to the hand. So usually you want to equip this to one of your opponent's monsters, bounce it back to the hand as a form of removal, and get a monster onto the board. So this card does a lot. It's absolutely a wonderful card, and I would run more of it if I could in this build. It just doesn't seem that efficient when the mechanicals aren't really starters or anything. So, but definitely a really solid card. Next up, we have Mayawasha Doherty. This once again has the protection effect. The equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects, and then it has the effect that I mentioned earlier. At the damage step, if your mechanical monster battled, target a card on the field and return it to the hand. So it's a really good form of removal. So basically for back row, since back row is probably going to be what we struggle with against the most in this deck. That and I want to say towers. Just this deck has pretty good forms of removal overall. It has non-targeting removal with the I want to say Gearfried and the Emperor Charles. And then you have some pretty good target removal with your SP Little Knights. You have Baron. You have the Aberesk. And I think that's actually pretty much all the target removal that you have. Oh yeah, and then Maya Washidori as well. But of course you have to battle with a mechanical monster to get this effect. So luckily it's searchable. Good. Moving on, this is just, it also says one more effect. If this card is in your graveyard and you have a mechanical monster in your graveyard, you can special summon the mechanical monster, and if you do, equip it with this card, but banish the monster when it leaves the field. So this is a pretty good way of getting your mechanical bodies onto your board as well. Now, moving on, we have Noble Arms Almace. This card is equipped to a monster. What you can do is equip a Noble Arms card, a different Noble Arms card, to a one appropriate monster that you control, then destroy this card. So what this does is it searches Durandal, since that's the only other Noble Arms card that we have in the deck. But so that's the real reason that you don't need to run more than one Durandal. But there isn't really any other equip spells that I would want to run in this deck. I would consider the other mechanical equip spell, but I think that's probably the worst one to draw. So I'm not interested in running it right now. But yeah, then it has the other effect of if this card is sent to the graveyard, because the equip monster was sent to the graveyard, you can target one Fire Warrior monster in your graveyard and then add it to your hand, I believe. Oh, it's banished or in graveyard. Okay. Well, I definitely never do banish, but yeah, this is going to be another card that helps you recycle your resources. So definitely worth running overall. And next up, we have Phoenix Gearblade. Well, this is an extender. This is defensive extender. I'm not sure which category this fits into. That's interesting. Let's go over what this card does, and then we can decide. Let's see. Equip it to a fire or a warrior monster and it gains 300 attack. Then at the end of the damage step, if the equipped monster attack, you can send this card to the graveyard. During this battle phase, each of your warrior and fire monsters can make a second attack. So this card is really strong for getting your OTKs, especially going second with a mechanical monster. It's absolutely disgusting. Then you have big ass monsters you can attack with, like Promethean Princess, Charles, Gearfried. It's just an absolutely monster of a card that just helps facilitate dumb OTKs, even into open boards. Yeah, you don't have to full commit into like a maxi or anything. You just end on like Princess and OGR and open board, and that's OTK. Since that's, you just have to get over 4K in attack. So absolutely nasty card. Then it has a recycle effect where it can recycle itself. If this card is sent to the graveyard or banished to activate a monster effect, you can add this card to your hand. So what you would do is send this off of Isold to the graveyard and then add it back to your hand to use our Isold cost. Or you can banish this card from your field or your graveyard to summon out your Gearfried, and then you can recycle it back that way. And then last but not least, you can use it as cost for your Infernoble Knight Charles negates, and then it can be added back that way. So this card is really good. But still, I'm still not sure. I guess it's an ender. Yeah, it doesn't facilitate any combos, so it's not a starter or an extender. And then it doesn't protect anything, and it's not actively a form of removal, so it's not exactly a defensive card, but it does help facilitate your imports. So going to slide it into the ender category. Let me know what you guys think. Next we have Angelica's Angelic Ring. This card has one important effect. Each turn, negate the effect of your opponent's first spell card or effect that resolves, and since it's a mandatory effect and you are not activating it yourself, this is one of the only cards that can negate cards like Super Poly, Dark Ruler no more, and Forbidden Droplet, which normally cannot be responded to at all. So this is going to make our inboards really, really strong and resistant to board breakers. So it's absolutely important that you run this card. I cannot stress that enough. Only downside about it is that it can only be equipped to a monster that already is equipped with an equipped card, but it's not really that big of a deal as far as getting towards our end board. The only thing I would say be careful about this card is letting it negate field spells and continuous spells. Since this card doesn't negate and destroy, they will stay on the field and your opponent will still be able to use them. The only thing they won't be able to do is get their on activation effects. So like Tailormint's Predator, I know is an example. On activation, that card will search a tier card, and if that card is negated by Angelica's Ring on activation, it will still go onto the field. They just won't get that search. So, but yeah, normally what I like to do is I would like to use my Emperor Charles negates on continuous spells and field spells, and then I'll save Angelica's Ring for either a normal spell or a quick play spell. Then going on into oil, this is a defensive card since it has a negate. It interacts with your opponent's cards. Now going into Noble Arms Museum, our field spell. This is a really, really good card. This card is not hard once per turn at all, so if you do play more than one of these, which honestly I might consider thinking about it. It's just I don't play more than one Angelica, so I don't see the point in having more than one. But it's a decent searcher. Getting into what it does, this card is an extender, by the way. But what this card does is all fire monsters you control, all fire warrior monsters, my bad, gain 500 attack. Then once per turn, you can pay 1200 life points, add a Noble Arms card from your deck to your hand, except itself. Then once per turn, if the previous effect was applied, you can target a Noble Knight monster in your spell or trap zone, special summon it, but if you did not control Emperor Charles when you activated its effect, it will be warrior locked. Almost never going to happen the way we use it, but definitely you will be placed in situations where that does happen. But so really just make sure you try to get into Princess before you use that the card's second effect. But you know, this is a pretty good searcher. Searches Durandal, which it feels weird to cut Durandal to add another one of these, if I'm being honest. Yeah, no, if this wasn't a decent extender, I probably wouldn't consider it. But for now, this is just a one-of field spell. Next up, we have Call by the Grave, and then last but not least, Cross-Out Designator. You guys know what these cards do. They're maxi hate. They cards that help you play against hand traps. So they're just defensive cards. Now going into our extra deck, we have Infernoble Knights Captain Roland. He is a level 5 Fire Warrior Tuner, and that's pretty much the best part of him. The second is during the main phase, he has a quick effect. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one warrior monster you control equipped with this card as an equipped spell that gives it 500 attack. So what we like to use this card is as an ender that allows us to use our non-targeting Emperor Charles pop during our opponent's turn. So that is most of the purpose this card serves. I pretty much never synchro summon this card. If you needed a level 5 tuner that bad, you would have just saved whatever tuner you had to make it with, being honest. So yeah, generally speaking, you're going to summon this card out with our next card, Angelica, Princess of the Noble Arms. This card has 2 really good effects. If this card is special summoned, you can add 1 card that mentions Emperor Charles from your deck to your hand. So this searches your field spell. We don't play Horn of Oliphant. I don't even remember what it does, but I know it's bad. So wouldn't be concerned with that. This card adds the field spell. It's pretty much the most important thing. Then when a card or effect is activated that targets this card on the field, or when this card is targeted for an attack, quick effect, you can send 1 Fire Warrior monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, banish this card into the end phase. then you can special summon a Roland from your deck or your extra deck. So what you would do is you would synchro into Princess, search your field spell, and then with either Ogier or Turpin in your graveyard, use its effect to target Angelica, and then Angelica would Foolish another Fire Warrior from your deck to the graveyard, and banish itself to summon out Roland. So really cool ass card. I'm not gonna lie. I like this. The theme around it is essentially a princess that, when targeted, like for an attack or for an effect, warrior falls in battle, so goes to the graveyard, and then she leaves until the end phase, so she gets banished, and then Roland takes her place to fight or just on the field in general. So cool ass card in my opinion, not gonna lie. Moving on though, we have Excel Stardust Dragon. This has one important effect only. If this card is special summoned, you can special summon a level 2 or lower tuner from your graveyard. This is just going to work with our Super Heavy Samurai engine to help us get into an early Baron. And then after that, we have Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles Part 1. If this card, oh not this card, if an equipped card becomes equipped to any monster on the field, even during the damage step, you can destroy one card on the field. And what's important about this is that it does not target. Having non-target removal is so important to any deck, and having access to it is even more important. I cannot stress enough that every deck needs to have at least one form of non-target removal and target removal. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in a situation where you can't out some card in particular. Then it has another effect of during the end phase, you can equip one equipped spell from your hand or graveyard to this card, then equip one Fire Warrior monster from your deck to this card as an equipped card that gives it a 500 attack. So just gonna help you gather resources essentially. Honestly, this card is more of an ender slash extender. It's an ender. Yeah, it's an ender. It's just a body we use to get to another body that's far inboard, essentially. But and then it has, obviously the form of removal on top of that as well. But let's see. I don't know if I went over it, but this I did say this was an ender. Angelica is an extender. Excel is an extender. Charles is going to be an ender. And then Baron, know what this card does. Target one card on the field, destroy it, and it has an Omni Negate as well. This card is a ender that's just good in any good synchro deck. Then after that we have MX Saber. This is going to be another extender. You can attach one material from this card, special summon one Earth Warrior or level 4 Earth Warrior from your deck in defense position. Like I said before, this card special summons Morningstar. That's 2 warriors for your Isold. Then after that we have Baguska, the Terribly Tired Taper. This is a card we go into our Super Heavy Samurai cards whenever we get Max Seed, just because you want to have some kind of answer to Max Seed, and you won't always. So really important that we can do something against it. And then what this card does is, while this card is face up in defense position, change all monsters on the field to defense position, and then then negates the activated effects of all monsters that were in defense position when this card effect was activated. So this is pretty much just a floodgate that prevents monsters from activating their effects when they are in the defensive position. So the only monsters that will be able to activate their effects on the field are link monsters. Next up we have Battling Boxer King Dempsey, another card for our Super Heavy Samurai engine. If this card is special summoned, you can either Foolish or add to your hand one level 4 or lower Fire Warrior monster from your deck. So generally you want to search either Turpin or Fireflint Lady off of this to get bodies onto your field for your Isold. And Alright, next card is, oh, hold on, my bad. Ender. I did say this was an extender and extender. I don't know why I keep moving on so fast for the extra deck cards. My bad, guys. We have another extender, so we have a Samurai Scarecrow. This is a Link 1 monster that can use any Superior Samurai monster, and this card has one important effect. If you have no spell traps in your graveyard, you can discard one monster from your hand, target a Superior Samurai monster in your graveyard, and special summon it to the zone that this card points to. So usually what we're going to want to do with this card is summon back the Soul Piercer, I believe, into the card this point, the zone this card points to, and then we will use the Peacemaker effect to send itself and the equip card, so in this case Scarecrow, to the graveyard, and special summon another Superior Samurai monster from your deck. Moving on, Emperor Charles the Great. You can link summon this card with one level 9 Infernoble Knight Charles. Well, Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles equipped with an equip card. Then, if this card is link summoned, you can target Charles in your graveyard. This card's name becomes that card's original name, and it gains its effects. And then you can equip that card to this monster as an equip spell that gives it 500 attack. So it'll get an attack boost, and it will gain Charles's effects. So it'll gain the non-target destruction and the equip during the end phase. Then it has a once per turn per copy effect of when your opponent activates, well, not your opponent, when any spell or trap or effect is activated, you can quick effect send a equip spell from your hand or face up field to the graveyard to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So it has a once per copy spell trap negate. Then what you want to do is summon both of these out at the same time, and then that way you will have two spell trap negates. So this card is not a hard once per turn, it's a soft once per turn. Then next up we have probably the most important card in the extra deck. I sold Two Tails of the Noble Knights. This card can be link summoned with two warrior monsters, so super easy to get to. Then what this card does is if it is link summoned, you can add a warrior monster from your deck to your hand, but you cannot summon it or use its effects for the rest of that turn. Then you can send any number of equip spells from your deck to the graveyard and special summon a warrior monster from your deck whose level is equal to the number of equip cards sent to the graveyard. So generally speaking, we want to summon OGL for this 9 times out of 10, but you have other good targets like Turpin, Richard, and Renaud. So Richard and Renaud being 1 equip spells both, and then Ogier and Turpin being 4. So just make sure you have the appropriate amount in your deck. Next up we have SP Little Knight. So this card is a defensive card. If it's a link summon using an extra deck monster, you can target 1 card on the field or in either graveyard, banish it. Also, you will not be able to attack directly for the rest of the turn. I learned that one the hard way. And then whenever your opponent activates a card or effect, you can quick effect target 2 face-up monsters in the field, including 1 that you control, banish both into the end phase. So really a good form of removal, essentially. And then last but not least, Promethean Princess, Destroyer of the Flames. She is a extender / ender. What she does is if during your main phase, you can special summon any 1 fire monster from your graveyard. Simple, pretty strong. Then while on the field, you can only special summon fire monsters while she is on your board. And then if your opponent special summons a monster, well, not your opponent, I learned that one the hard way too. If a monster is special summoned to your opponent's field while this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 fire warrior monster. Not fire warrior, jeez, I'm so used to saying that from this video. My bad. You can target one fire monster you control and one monster your opponent controls, destroy them, and if you do, special summon this card. Um, that's a very, very soft and if you do. You don't have to destroy both, unlike you have to banish both with SP. So, anyway, that's Yu-Gi-Oh for you. That about wraps up all of these cards. I do believe we went over everything. Charles was an ender. Isold was a really, really strong extender. And then Scareclaw was an extender. So yeah, I do believe that wraps up everything here. I will see you guys in the gameplay section of the next video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know in the comments. I'm sure you guys are pretty curious as to how the Suburban Samurai engine works. But yeah, look forward to seeing that pretty soon.